You've probably heard someone say something like this before. I'm so OCD about keeping things clean. Or maybe someone jokes that they have OCD because they like their desk perfectly organized. It's a phrase that gets used casually in everyday conversations. But here's the reality. OCD is not a personality trait. It's not about liking things neat or organized. It's not about having a tidy room or color-coded notebooks. For millions of people around the world, obsessive compulsive disorder, known as OCD, is a serious mental health condition. It's a condition that can quietly take over someone's thoughts, their routines, and sometimes even their entire day. While many people imagine OCD as a small quirk or a harmless habit, the truth is much deeper. Behind the jokes and stereotypes are people fighting an invisible battle inside their own minds, a battle between thoughts they don't want and actions they feel they must perform. Today, we're going to uncover the truth about OCD. We'll break down some of the biggest myths surrounding the disorder. We'll explore what science currently knows about why it happens. And most importantly, we'll talk about hope. Because understanding mental health is the first step toward compassion, awareness, and support. Myth 1. OCD is just repetitive behavior. When people hear the term obsessive compulsive disorder, they often picture someone repeating certain actions over and over again. Checking the door lock multiple times, washing their hands constantly, arranging objects perfectly on a table. And while these behaviors can appear in people with OCD, they are only part of the story. The disorder actually has two important components. The first is obsessions. Obsessions are intrusive thoughts, images, or urges that repeatedly enter a person's mind. These thoughts are unwanted. They often appear suddenly and can feel impossible to ignore. For example, someone might have an intrusive thought that they accidentally left the stove on, or they might experience an overwhelming fear that they could harm someone, even though they have absolutely no intention of doing so. Others might experience disturbing mental images or fears of contamination from everyday objects. These thoughts create intense anxiety, and that anxiety leads to the second component of OCD, compulsions. Compulsions are behaviors people feel driven to perform in order to reduce the anxiety created by their obsessive thoughts. For example, someone might repeatedly check the stove to make sure it's off. Another person might wash their hands again and again to eliminate the fear of contamination. Someone else might arrange objects in a very specific order until everything feels just right. The key point here is that these actions are not done for enjoyment. They are done to relieve anxiety. Even when someone with OCD knows their fear might not make logical sense, their brain still sends powerful signals that something is wrong. And the only way to quiet that signal, at least temporarily, is by performing the compulsion. This cycle of obsession followed by compulsion can repeat many times throughout the day. For some people, it can take up hours of their time, and that's what separates OCD from normal habits or personality traits. Myth 2. OCD is only about hand washing. If you ask someone to imagine OCD, many people immediately picture someone washing their hands excessively. Movies and television often portray OCD this way, but in reality, OCD is far more complex than that. Hand washing is just one possible symptom among many. Obsessions can appear in many different forms. Some people develop intense fears about germs or contamination. Others may experience constant doubts, such as worrying they accidentally harmed someone. Some individuals struggle with intrusive thoughts that are violent, disturbing, or morally upsetting. Others become preoccupied with symmetry, patterns, numbers, or order. Compulsions can also take many different forms. Some people clean excessively. Others repeatedly check doors, appliances, or locks. Some people arrange objects until they feel perfectly balanced. Others count numbers silently in their minds or repeat specific phrases. Some compulsions are completely invisible to others. For example, a person might mentally repeat a phrase or prayer over and over again to neutralize an intrusive thought. Because OCD can appear in so many different ways, it is often misunderstood. Many people suffer quietly without others realizing what they're going through. Myth 3. People with OCD don't realize their behavior is irrational. Another common misunderstanding about OCD is the belief that people with the disorder don't realize their behavior is irrational. But in reality, many individuals with OCD are very aware that their thoughts and actions don't make logical sense. They may know that the door is locked. They may know their hands are already clean. They may understand that their fears are extremely unlikely. But even with that awareness, the anxiety doesn't simply disappear. Their brain continues to send signals that something is wrong. Imagine knowing a thought isn't true, yet feeling an overwhelming urge to respond to it anyway. Imagine trying to ignore the thought, but feeling your anxiety grow stronger and stronger until you finally give in to the compulsion. That internal conflict is what makes OCD so exhausting. Many people with OCD describe feeling trapped in a cycle they can't escape. They may feel embarrassed about their thoughts or behaviors. Some even worry that others will think they're crazy if they talk about it. But the reality is that OCD is a recognized medical condition involving complex brain processes. And like many medical conditions, it deserves understanding, not judgment. What causes OCD? One of the most frustrating aspects of OCD is that scientists still don't have a single clear answer for what causes it. However, research has provided some important clues. Most experts now believe that OCD is related to the way certain brain circuits function. Several areas of the brain appear to play a role in the disorder. These regions are involved in decision-making, emotional responses, habit formation, and behavior control. When communication between these brain regions becomes disrupted, it may lead to obsessive thoughts and compulsive behaviors. Another important factor is a chemical messenger in the brain called serotonin. Serotonin helps regulate mood, sleep, appetite, and impulse control. Research has shown that people with OCD may have differences in how serotonin functions in their brain. This is one reason why many medications used to treat OCD work by increasing serotonin levels. Genetics may also play a role. Studies suggest that OCD can run in families, meaning some people may inherit a biological vulnerability to developing the disorder. But genetics alone cannot fully explain OCD. Environmental factors, stress, and life experiences may also influence how the condition develops. In reality, OCD is likely the result of a complex interaction between brain biology, genetics, and environment. And scientists are still working to understand exactly how these factors interact. Living with OCD. For someone living with OCD, everyday activities can become surprisingly difficult. Simple tasks that others take for granted may trigger intense anxiety. Leaving the house might require repeated checking rituals. Touching everyday objects may trigger fears of contamination. Certain thoughts may appear suddenly and refuse to leave. Over time, these experiences can become emotionally exhausting. Many people with OCD also struggle with feelings of frustration, shame, or isolation. They may worry about being judged or misunderstood. Some people try to hide their symptoms from friends, family, or coworkers. But it's important to remember something crucial. OCD is not a weakness. It is not a lack of discipline or willpower. It is a medical condition involving the brain. And like many medical conditions, it can be treated. The hopeful part. The good news is that OCD is one of the most treatable mental health conditions. One of the most effective treatments is a form of behavioral therapy known as exposure and response prevention, often called ERP. In this therapy, individuals gradually face the situations that trigger their obsessive thoughts. At the same time, they learn to resist performing the compulsive behaviors that usually follow. At first, this process can feel challenging, but over time, the brain begins to learn something important. The feared outcome does not happen, and gradually, the anxiety begins to decrease. Medications can also help. Certain medications increase serotonin activity in the brain and can reduce obsessive thoughts and compulsive urges. For many individuals, a combination of therapy and medication provides the best results. With proper treatment and support, many people with OCD are able to regain control over their lives. Living with OCD can sometimes feel like being trapped inside your own mind, knowing your thoughts aren't real, but feeling unable to silence them. Yet, despite these challenges, millions of people continue to face this battle every single day, and many of them overcome it. Through therapy, through support, through understanding. The human brain is incredibly complex, and while we still have much to learn about how it works, the more we understand mental health conditions like OCD, the more compassion we can show to those who live with them. Because sometimes, the most powerful thing we can offer someone who is struggling silently is simply understanding, and the reminder that they are not alone.